The largest 4-day workweek pilot program began in the UK with no pay cut or loss of benefits. Workers here in the US could start to see the standard workweek shrinking. Hey, and welcome back. In my previous video, I covered some relevant news in the world of employment. Apple CEO Tim Cook's overall apprehension towards a fully remote workplace has sparked honestly some debate over the model's long-term effectiveness. If you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to check that out. In that video, I talk about why it's so important for me to stay up to date with news relating to employment, hiring, and the greater economy as a whole. In order for me to keep both sides, employer and candidates, happy and knowledgeable what's going on, therefore really maintain my success as a recruiter, I need to keep up with various trends and statistics so my decisions are informed and effective. With the massive shakeup that occurred in the professional world due to the pandemic, it's become especially important for me to keep a close eye on how things are developing and changing. Right now, candidates and employees have a high degree of bargaining power. In fact, more than ever before. The Great Resignation is a phenomenon that began as employees saw that a greater degree of flexibility was indeed possible with remote work becoming the standard during the pandemic. Now professionals are leaving their current positions in search of more lucrative positions with more freedom to work how and even when they want. But this is just one example of how the professional world is rapidly changing, and I've already talked about it in previous videos. Today though, we're going to cover a related bit of news from the United Kingdom, aka the UK, where they're experiencing a similar professional shakeup. The biggest trial of a 4-day work week is about to begin. In this video, we'll explore a little bit of the history of the standard work week and background of the story and conclude with what effects this may have on you as an employee. But before we get started, as always, remember to like, subscribe, click that bell. It's completely free and really helps us out a lot. So do you ever find yourself wondering where the standard 40-hour, 5-day work week even came from? When it became the standard, you might be surprised to learn that during the Industrial Revolution, the standard work week was actually 6 days a week and closer to 60 or 70 hours. As you can imagine, factory workers began to really feel that this was quite unsustainable. Some even began a campaign using a catch hook. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will. Henry Ford, looking to increase productivity in his factories, found value in this proposition. In 1914, he made the unprecedented decision to decrease his employees' standard work week to 6 days and 40 hours. In addition, he doubled his employees' pay rate and implemented an incredibly effective assembly line system. The benefits of this change were immediate and undeniable. He found productivity and employee satisfaction increased across the border. Other businesses began to follow in his footsteps, and the standard 40-hour work week became a law in 1940. Soon, businesses, economists, and employees themselves were benefiting from the change, and many predicted that as technology improved, the standard work week would continue to shrink. 4-day workweek trials. While technology has certainly improved, the standard workweek has remained the same since 1940. Only recently have calls for reduction gained momentum. Just prior to the pandemic, experts state we were on a very short path to overwork and burnout, and productivity and well-being were suffering as a result. At the time, Iceland was the only one of the countries taking steps to combat this potential culture of overwork. The country led the largest trial of a shorter work week from 2015 to 2019, in which 2,500 public sector employees had their work weeks reduced to 4 days on, 3 days off. They were happy to find a huge increase in overall employee well-being and no decrease in productivity. Similar but smaller studies in New Zealand and Scotland presented a similar result. The pandemic's effect. As I mentioned earlier, the COVID-19 pandemic was the push many companies needed to begin to implement more flexible working conditions, primarily the ability to perform a role remotely. As the pandemic continued to wind down, calls for further improvements to the standard culture of work here in the US are increasing rapidly. During the pandemic, companies such as Unilever, Panasonic, and Microsoft began their own small internal trials of a 4-day work week. While Unilever is still in the midst of the pilot and has yet to release the results, Panasonic ended up implementing an optional 4-day work week in Japan, and perhaps even more shockingly, Microsoft reported a 40% increase in productivity. The biggest pilot program begins. This leads us to today's main news story. On Monday, June 6, 2022, the largest 4-day workweek pilot program began in the UK, with over 70 organizations of all sizes participating. A whopping 3,300 employees will work only 80% of their usual time with no pay cut or loss of benefits. The program is being run by 3 nonprofit organizations, the 4-Day Workweek Global, global 2-day-week UK campaign and a think tank called Autonomy, in addition to receiving assistance from Cambridge University, Oxford University, and Boston College. The participants are a range of companies from a variety of industries, including food and beverage, retail, housing, banking, consulting, education, robotics, and even video game development. The goal of this study is to measure the effects of a shorter work week on an employee's overall well-being, while also considering productivity. Joe O'Connor, head of 4-Day Workweek Global, had this to say about the program in a released statement. He said, quote, "As we emerge from the pandemic, more and more companies are recognizing that the new frontier for competition is quality of life, and that reduced hour, output-focused working is the vehicle to give them a competitive edge. Impact of the Great Resignation is now proving that workers from a diverse range of industries can produce better outcomes while working shorter and smarter." In addition, Juliet Shore from the Boston College Sociology Department said this about the pilot's goals. Quote, "The 4-day week is generally considered to be a triple dividend policy, helping employees, companies, and climate. Our research efforts will be digging into all of this. We'll be analyzing how employees respond to having an extra day off in terms of stress, burnout, job and life satisfaction, health, sleep, energy use, travel, and many other aspects of life," end quote. So what could this mean for you? This pilot program in the UK seems to be another big step towards big change. Considering the reported effectiveness of a truncated workweek from a variety of significant sources, even ones such as Panasonic and Microsoft, workers here in the US and indeed around the world could start to see the standard workweek shrinking. If you're a worker in the professional world, you want to keep an eye out on this. A shorter workweek would have huge ramifications, most beneficial across many aspects of life. If you support a shortened workweek, I urge you to keep up to date with the story and keep an eye out for changes in your workplace. Okay, so this just about wraps up this video. Do you have any thoughts on how a shorter work week will affect your life or overall well-being? I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to leave a comment below. If you like this video, want to see more like it, please consider like, subscribe, click that bell. It really means a lot. Feel free to also follow me at Preston_Park as I try my best to also post daily. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.